My fault.
Call this meeting of the Shoreline Town Council to order. Today is Wednesday, August 6th. It's 4:01. Amy, before we start on noise, I just wanted to thank you for that knowledge that you got here, because I thought you did a wonderful job of sort of pointing out the sailing things in there. It just was a great, I thought it was a really well done.
Thank you. It was my own tool, and then I
Yes.
thought it might be helpful. So
Was that regarding this? Do you want to kick off, Amy, or?
sure. Or
Yeah.
one, two, three, go. And for the public who doesn't have this yet, eventually I'm sure it'll be on Clerkbase, but it's just a one page. So I'll hopefully use this as a guide through our conversation today. And it starts with just a summary of some of the readings the chief has made to date, which if you were at our last meeting is pretty consistent. But starting with the idea that the neighborhood residual noise has been between 58 and 72, depending on vehicle and pedestrian traffic. He then summarizes some of the music at Nick's, generally in the 66 to 74 range. Those are readings from the sidewalk. There are additional readings from the sidewalk at the back of the National, 64 to 70. Some readings were done up by the Seabreeze, generally related then to the Spring House, ranging between 55 and 68. And then the general noise in town on the sidewalk in front of the Seaside, 62 to 81. And so without getting bogged down in the numbers, the real takeaway there is that the ambient sound levels, which is a defined term, we'll call that the neighborhood noise, is generally at or above the limits that are set forth in the ordinance. And those are defined in Table 1 for anyone who's also going back and forth to the ordinance itself. And so that's sort of the summary of the challenge at the moment, because readings then taken to identify a noise disturbance at a particular location have sometimes been above the threshold in the table, but often when the ambient noise is also above that threshold. And in most cases, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, the readings looking for a noise disturbance haven't been more than 5 or 10 decibels above the ambient sound levels. So all of that is, yeah.
Because in a way, it's sort of strikes me that it limits where you would find people in policy.
Yes, it sort of defines the exactly.
I had gotten over that.
Again, just some of the other data points that I was summarizing for myself, the chief's representation that so far this season, the holders of outdoor entertainment licenses have been responsive to any requests for adjustment.
Right.
And one of the other elements that's been on the table has been the DBA versus DBC readings. Not to take that off the table, but in general, in the readings so far, there have been some but not material differences in those DBA and DBC. So there might be a gap between them, but given our more fundamental baseline ambient noise issue, it's not as though creating a definition today for DBC would suddenly create an enforcement situation that was different than the landscape we currently have.
Is it okay if I ask Paul a
Yeah.
question about the DBC thing? Because
In your, when you received your bachelor's degree in audio engineering, I don't know how to get at this, but the bass is always what's noticeable to me. That and, you know, and maybe it's just because I'm a 63-year-old old fart who hears that bass. But did you guys learn anything around whether either the A measurement or C measurement have different thresholds for being an annoyance? You know what I mean? Does that question make sense at all?
It does.
Yeah.
And we didn't really discuss whether or not A or C is more of an annoyance.
Yeah.
I think what you're getting at is we can compare two types of music. We can compare country music versus techno music. Country music on the C scale is going to be pretty much about the same. Techno music, because it has that thumping beat, is probably going to be a little bit higher.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. It just occurred to me when I was reading this stuff, whether there's.
I would add to this and maybe ask the chief if he may or may not have feedback on this, but in most of the other ordinances that I've looked at so far, there is when the ordinance also measures DBC, it is only specific to an entertainment type situation.
I see.
So that's a specific measurement that they're using in that context.
Gotcha.
Not that I've looked at every ordinance, but that's the
Right,
common
right.
thread.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess I would pause there to see if there are any parts so far that people want to talk about or if the chief wants to clarify.
I had a question about the last note that you had on here. Review hours set forth in the ordinance for sound levels in general. Is that sort of what we were talking about? I was talking about the other day about construction noise at 7 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Which I have gotten feedback on from people who are like, please don't tell us we can't mow lawns at 7
How
a.m.
would we fit everything in the day that we need
Right.
to? Yeah.
But I also want to take into consideration that 7 a.m. in the summer is very different from 7 a.m. in the winter. And the particular complaint that I had from someone was last winter in March, where I think it's still dark at 7 a.m. And it was like an excavator next to their house, right, going at 7 a.m. So maybe we should think about winter, summer, I don't know, or zones, you know, where you might have a different, or what? Daylight,
Summer.
right, right. I mean, it's definitely a different feel in the winter if you have an excavator starting up next to your house at 7 a.m.
Paul, I have one other quick data question about the sea breeze. It sounds like I feel like the few complaints I've gotten around from Seabreeze, if I recall correctly, have been really focused on which direction the speakers are turned.
Correct.
You've seen that too. Did you observe that? I'm curious.
I didn't personally observe it the first night that I was there. Andrea and I actually were standing out there and watching
Yeah.
it set up, and it's facing the right direction. The night that the violin, I think it's Thursday night, he plays there.
Oh yeah.
His background music is fine. The violin was pushing it like 70, 71. So I just texted Frank, tell him to turn that down a little bit. Andrea sent me a picture the following Monday via email that the speaker was facing away from the building. So I had a conversation with young Frank. Please stop.
Yeah.
Like I have way too many things to do. Just
Yeah.
do this the right way. And he did, and it's been fine.
Okay.
So
Great. Thank you.
So that's the other thing is Well, I just want to say, and I did find it in here that the church does not need an outdoor entertainment license in order to have religious music. But what was going on there last night was something wild. I don't know if you guys heard it where you were, but the music coming off the Harbor Baptist Church last night was insanity.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice, they had some sort.
Yes, well, I was picking up freight at the freight dock, and the people in the freight area with me, we all thought maybe the band was in the freight shed. And then we couldn't figure out if maybe this band with this insanely loud music was at the new place at Finn's. But no, it was at the Harbor Church. And it was, you could hear it all the way past the Surf Hotel. Like, so
Would they do?
I understand that it was some religious band, you know, like Christian rock, but they've got to follow the rules too. I understand that they don't need to get an outdoor entertainment license, but they, you know, it was pretty wild. It was pretty loud. So they don't have an outdoor entertainment license. We can't pull their license. We specifically have said you don't need a license. But maybe some reminder, some refresher about like, but you still have to follow all the other rules regarding noise and placement of speakers, because those speakers were certainly facing outward. So I don't want to like, we're holding all of our outdoor entertainment license people, we're holding their feet to the fire. It's got to be everybody.
It's going straight to hell.
Yeah, use the mic if you don't mind.
Back in Zerlin, we're, you know, using a lot, because that's who Paul. He said another belief is that all forms of sound are protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and the church. Some of the making noise neighbors noted that above such rights, but at Zerlin, community noise enforcement manual notes the United States Supreme Court found there is no constitutional protected right to amplify sound, nor is there a constitutional right to unwilling people to listen to your speech or expression, and that's what church is.
Amy, I had a question, but it's a little farther down. Are you?
I was gonna
Think
say-
how far are you down? I don't want to be jumping on you.
I'm deferring to you. So if we want to move forward.
Walk through it.
So based on that, sort of that landscape as we know it today, and what I've heard in terms of feedback from the council, if there were changes that the council wanted to take action on, it would probably be the three there that are proposed, except the first one, because the chief has corrected my misunderstanding there of the differential in the 5 versus 2 decibel correction factor. So he says we need to keep that language in there because it's a slightly different application. But because the 2 versus the 5 correction factor was confusing to me, I would love for him to explain it to other people.
That would be great. That was the one thing I didn't understand. Thank you.
We need to hear it again.
But I would also, I'd also be interested in coming up with a way to limit the number of outdoor entertainment licenses overall.
So the pure tonal sound, which has a 5 decibel correction. When I took the class and I talked to Eric about this, because we, as I said before, we went through all of the individual ordinances, ours in particular. And when I asked him about that, he said that that is for a noise that is a constant pure tone, i.e. like a transformer for electricity. You hear that hum, that is pure tonal sound. That is what that 5 decibel correction is for. It's not for the music. What we do a correction for is a 2 decibel correction, not a 5, because of the meter that we use. You have two different types of meters. One is a 1 decibel correction, one is a 2. And that's just the way that they're set up through their standards. So that 5 decibel correction does not count towards amplified music. That is, if you have a neon sign out in front of your house that is constantly humming, that's the pure tonal sound. That's what that 5 decibel would be used for. Okay, not for amplified music. So we're only using a 2 decibel correction and not a 5.
Right. Cindy, use that one right there.
No,
Have you been using the 5?
No.
No, not at all.
no,
Oh, I thought that was the margin of error we
No.
had been using.
no, that's what Matt Moran used last year.
5?
Yes, that's.
So
not what-
all these years, it's that 5 buffer
Mhm,
until this year.
Yep,
So that's good.
because I actually got a much better answer from Eric about what that was for.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
When you said that on this, Chief Dean, when you said that you had done measurements that were on the cusp, were those in A weighted or C weighted? So we're ignoring the fact that A weighted and C weighted have a 7-point variance between them. So we're not acknowledging C weighted. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Our ordinance as it's written
I
is
understand.
A weighted.
Right,
It's not C weighted.
right. So,
I have done comparisons, and when you take the jump from A weighted to C weighted, it jumps across the board. Your neighborhood residual jumps, your total sound jumps.
the impression that residual sound that the ambient sound should only be measured in A weighted.
That's not, we were taught to do it all in A weighted scale and not in C. Our
Okay.
ordinance says A weighted scale, and that's what we're doing it with.
New Jersey measures HZs, which is a whole other ballgame to capture the low frequency noises. We don't have any tool to measure the low frequency noise. That is the problem. So I submitted last year's numbers. I gave you the A weighting, which is the raw data that Matt Moran collected. And then the DBC was a 7-point addition to those numbers. If you look at those numbers, 70% of the time we were over the decibel level. So how we cannot have any tool to measure the bass noise, I'm perplexed. Because Jersey does have a tool to measure it, which is complicated and requires more manpower. So
The HZ one requires more manpower.
the measuring of the HC, yeah, it's like a different. Our decibel reader has it, but I didn't delve into it because the C weighted was, and then I gave you an explanation of of why people add the 7 points. And that's a conservative addition. I think 70% of the readings from last year over 70 decibels, some as high as 84. And that's not volume, that's pressure. So when you add 10 decibels of pressure, it's like 3 times perceived loudness. As the evening goes on and it gets more quiet, those differentiations are huge. Because the ambient sound goes down. According to the readings from last year, I included the ambient sounds when they were available off of Matt Moran's papers, and it averages about 55. And I've gone out sporadically over the last 2 weeks and taken ambient noise readings, and I don't get anything over 55. So if we're doing ambient readings in front of the big, in a parking lot with activity, bars, restaurants, I don't know that that's a true read of the ambient noise. The other thing that I noticed, or that I've read, is when the ambient noise is at 55 and we're at 70 in our decibel level. That 15 points difference, which I just explained that the 10 of pressure is 3 times as great. Now you're looking at 15 decibels difference. So when our ambient noise is 55 and our volume's at 70, that difference is all you hear. That all you hear is the music. You don't hear the ambient noise of the birds and the wind and the lovely things that we want to hear. We hear that vibration, banging. So I'm really confused at how we're not going to look at measure the bass in some way.
Thank you, Bridget.
So can I just ask you really quick, Bridget, you're saying like as the evening goes on, but the music ends at 7, 8? Well, that's not outdoor entertainment, that's indoor. Yeah.
Yeah, so as the night and the air cools down and sound travels faster with cooler air, and the vibration, the C-weighted things are not traveling through the air, they're in the ground. They're like pumping the ground, shaking the buildings, like that noise is different than A-weighted one. A-weighted, like the chief said in the last meeting, is what your ear naturally hears, the human ear. The C-weighted picks up different noises. And those different noises are what is so troublesome. So I would like to understand how we're not gonna look at it. And then the other thing is Eric, I looked at Eric Ziegler also suggests that you do 5 decibels over the ambient noise. So if our ambient noise is 55, 60, then you just add 5 decibels to that number to get the ordinance. But that big discrepancy between ambient noise and noise is something that we need to look at.
If I may speak to the C-weight, Professor Eric Zerwin, for calling Eric or Professor Zerwin, but it's Eric Zerwin. Communicates to me that the issue is music, particularly percussive bass. You should know that most noise codes measure sound in A-weighted decibels. The A-weighted scale is not particularly sensitive to bass. That's why some jurisdictions include a provision in their noise code which measures sound on the C scale, which is more sensitive to low frequency bass. They also have Dr. James Miller, who I've given you paperwork reported from the URI, who said the noise is all about the bass. And that the bass is proven that it infiltrates doors, windows, walls, it comes into your home, you feel it in your body. It is a true thing. And the only way to measure that is with C-bass. And then, of course, I gave you the example of the guy in Greenwich with the lawsuit and all that, where the bands agreed to not use the subwoofers and the bass. And just everyone was doing the same thing. They did the house equipment. It was all tested during their liquor, during the liquor hearings, which are at the same time we are. And that way, the bands couldn't come in with their own equipment, with different volumes and things like that. It was just a baseline. And everybody was on the same page. They were all doing the same thing. It's been really successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks. I appreciate everybody's time during this, by the way. Thanks.
Great.
So the two ordinance amendments that the council could take action on sort of in the short order, I don't want to say today, but would be, we'll take the second one, the third one first, measuring from the property line, which has been a recommendation of the chief as opposed to from the receiving property.
And Amy, on that, can the chief just explain, I know we've said to me, if you measure from the property line, the impact, obviously the distance, it would be some, but do you feel that it's not gonna be, it's not that detrimental to the license holder either?
And that's fairly common in other ordinances
Sure.
specific to outdoor entertainment licenses, measuring from the property line of the license holder. So that's not an inconsistency. The other part would be if you look at section 1246 and the application of the table that we're all pretty familiar with, there's actually an exemption there for outdoor entertainment license holders. I would suggest that we remove the exemption so that we have a clear set of standards that everybody can play by relative to sound. And that would clarify that the table one that in practice has been applied to outdoor entertainment licenses holds up in an internally consistent way.
So Amy, are you saying currently there's an exemption for the outdoor entertainment, although that's what we're working as if there isn't an exemption?
I think everybody's been playing by those rules.
Sure.
The chief, the license holders have been working towards those guidelines. And this will make sure the language aligns with that practice. As the conversation continues to evolve, the council may want to consider some of the more long-term solutions, like introducing a C-weighted set of measurements, like considering an East Greenwich model where you are regulating at the source of an outdoor entertainment license production. You could look at a differential implementation. I have not seen this specific to outdoor entertainment or other sound amplifications license holders, but I've seen it in some more narrow examples where the regulations say that you can only be, it's usually between 6 and 10 decibels above the baseline. So if you have this type of amplified sound, it must be within 10 decibels of either the ambient noise or the standard regulation for that area.
Is it determined at the moment? You know,
That's why.
I get what it's driving at. I'm just not sure how.
So the easy example to think about that is a speaker in the back of a truck, which we don't do here anyway, but some communities do. And they set their regulations for that type of amplified sound activity as no more than 10 decibels above the neighborhood guidelines because it's a transient use. Like I said, it's less, and there are other examples for shared residences where you might have a number of apartments in one building. You know what the baseline sound is, and sound between one apartment and another can't be more than 6 decibels above the baseline for the building. So it's used in more narrow circumstances. Maybe that's an application that works, but that's a longer term thing for us to think about. Going back to one of Nancy's suggestions, maybe that's where we do need a sound study over the long term to reestablish those table one baselines in a way that captures our ambient sound levels more realistically. But those are definitely some more long-term approaches.
I mean, I think the stuff you have listed under proposed ordinance amendments are fine from my perspective. I would like to look at sort of all aspects of the like apparently we need a different piece of equipment than we have. I don't. Oh, I thought you said we only do it. Oh, we do it in A because the ordinance is only on A. Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Right, and we still get caught in that A is already,
Right,
the baseline in A is already above the limit
right.
in a lot of
exactly.
instances, and therefore the noise disturbance in A is already above the limits, but you can't enforce one
Right,
and the second is already
Gotcha.
a violation.
Well,
Under potential considerations, one of the things I'd like to see us do is with the applications, when they come in, have people explain what measures they're gonna do to help reduce or to contain on their properties. And what mitigation, and it's not even a matter just to hit that level, but I think it will stop and give them reflect what might be, what might be down at Bridgegate Square might be totally different than at the Sullivan House. I think it gives them an opportunity to take a look at, direction, what's around them, so forth, and just to present those. And I think so the neighboring people also will understand what good faith efforts are making from both ends. I had one other question. I'm not sure whether it would be Nick or maybe Millie might know. Speakers on a building. Let's say I have a radio, or I have a DJ or whatever. If I have speakers outside of the building, does that fall within outdoor entertainment?
It does.
It does.
I'd also be curious to talk about noise, like noise created by gatherings of people. So like I had a couple of people actually the other day complained to me about the housing behind the gables, between the gables and the church. And they said specifically noise, like people partying, Bluetooth speakers, music coming out of cars, late night, just, and I realize that that's a problem their management really should have under control. That's not something for the town, but what is, I guess, Paul, you would know, like, what's the solution there? But I mean, do we address that anywhere? Like, what if they don't do anything about it?
Nancy, you look like your fingers were walking toward the mic.
No, no.
Make sure you turn it on.
I still feel like I don't, I don't have a great grasp of the science for all of this.
Mhm.
So, so we're kind of struggling. One of the other things when Molly mentioned, looking at the outdoor entertainment license in general, I think also when the application comes in, we should know what's around it. I mean, how many outdoor entertainment licenses exist in that, square area before we start adding to it.
This was good.
Mm. Mm.
I'm under the impression that adding different venues to it does not cause the sound to necessarily go up, because everybody's maintaining and containing their noise within their space. So I mean, cutting businesses off from having a license doesn't necessarily solve the problem.
I was looking at a solution, just looking.
Oh, I thought we were here looking
But
for
I do think,
solutions.
that, when there's no outdoor liquor license in the area, it definitely is a solution to an issue being because there's no outdoor entertainment. So I do think it's important that we take a good look at the impact of any new ones that come up it has to the neighbors. So I think that has some merit to it. One of the things Keith, I like to learn a little more about the C and so forth, but I also recognize the chief of police has put a lot of time into this, and it's worthy, it's great. But I think that there's only so much we can do at this time, but I also don't want to have it fall off the radar that we're, next June with it. But I would like to learn a little bit more about the C and the base as
That's,
you're saying,
that-
because
that-
I learned a lot about the A and
That's better said than I was. I mean, one of the things I like about this memo is that there are, we can ask Nick to draft these for public hearing, the two bullets here, because the first bullet is off the table. But I actually think all these things are really worth taking a look at, as is, who knows, Hertz, or, I mean, I'm perfectly willing to continue this and try to figure it out. Obviously, one of the things that from what I've heard anecdotally from Amy and from Cindy about the source management approach, that seems really interesting, where it's sort of like, can we all just agree on a particular approach to this, that it's the same equipment used the same way all the time. That's an interesting approach. I don't know whether it makes sense here.
You say that again.
I think this shift to source management approach, like East Greenwich, which Cindy talked about and Amy talked about, was interesting. What?
I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Can I just ask a question of Chris on that theory? My understanding is that an awful lot of bands come with their own sound equipment. If that's not a problem, if we're talking about, having a set unit of amplification that everyone has to use, is that going to be fine? Does that cause any problems or?
Well, we don't let the bands bring their own equipment.
Oh, okay,
Great.
good.
We have our own sound engineer. We have our own sound booth. We have our own mixing board. We have our own amps. We have our own speakers. They bring instruments. We have our own drum kit. So they don't have to bring everything over on the ferry. So we have everything in-house
Okay.
that
that's
would
good
be
to know.
needed,
Yeah.
like
and that's for outside also, Chris.
outside's all of our own equipment as well. So we try to keep it as easy as possible for the bands coming over.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also for the sound engineers having the same equipment all the time is helpful.
Yeah.
So we have everything in house.
Okay, good.
So do people want Nick to draft these two particular pieces? Where the measurement takes place? Right? Yes? Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should be out. Here, you can have mine. Bill and I will look on
Yeah, we
together.
can work on
Take that.
Well, we're talking about the three items here.
No, number one was
Not implementable,
for steady
according to the chief.
Your tone.
Sir,
that's
here,
right.
no.
Yep.
And I really like, for those that don't have the paper, the property line. I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's gonna have a good residual effect from that, measured from the property line. And I think it'll be easier for enforcement, from that end of it. And the person that has the entertainment itself, they know where to go exactly.
Yep.
To do their own in-house measurement.
Yeah.
We have some comments.
Great. We're talking about drafting it. Then we'll have I mean, I want to hear what, but just in terms of process, we're going to ask Nick to draft this stuff. Then it would be set for public hearing, and then we would have, so there's going to be ample opportunity to to have input. I'm not saying I don't want to hear, I'm just saying honestly, for people to know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Down. Different down.
I don't know how we can do that with our ordinance timeline. Yeah, I guess so. Yes, of course, Cindy.
Are we not gonna have any input on this before it goes to, I mean, before it goes to the lawyers and then you have public comment? I just feel like I was under the impression that with the work session, we're gonna sort of go through it piece by piece and tweak it together. Are we not able to do that?
This is on these two issues, on the piece of paper you have. This is on cleaning up the ordinance on 1246D2. That removes the exemption from the noise level for the outdoor entertainment. And the second one that we're asking them to work on is measuring from the property line as opposed to, where the hall came in from.
And
Great.
I just don't, it just doesn't work. We are hearing the bass in our homes, which is so disturbing. And it's not hearing the bass, the type of music it is, and it's facts about bass music. And it doesn't comport to the readings on the property line. So this is the issue with all of us, is that it's in our homes. And you're not gonna pick it up with a decimal reading that I never, on my property, rarely get to that number, unless it's in C-Wave.
but are you talking about regulating the type of music or the content of the music? I mean, how?
I think when, like the music's too loud, I wake up, I have to call the police. Or during, the afternoon, the Sunday thing, I never make it on my property to the level that is a violation. And by the way, and I did make a mistake last week, I read through all those, I played the song, I read the readings. I'm actually 65, I'm not 70. Yeah, so that made a difference. No,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I mean,
Yeah. Reading.
oh my goodness.
I mean,
Like, what? I'm sorry.
I thought you looked good.
That was really funny. What?
and that's another huge issue when you're speaking of the property line. Why, when we are so close, are we having two different decibel levels?
Cindy, can I ask you a question? Right now, we have under the A, right? And that being measured from the property line, because the C is the base, right? Is the thumb part. And right now, we don't have that in an ordinance right now. But right now, we do have the A. The A being measured from the property line as opposed to the source. Is that, because that's not the low frequency, is that an improvement?
Right?
Sure.
Why
course.
not? Because it doesn't tell you.
We need to use
Use the mic, Bridget, thank you.
It doesn't, if you measure out the property line, and a perfect example is last meeting, Molly said that she was sitting across the street and the music didn't bother her. But Cindy, who was up on the hill, it bothered. So reading in front, it doesn't capture how the noise is traveling. And way back in one of our first meetings, my suggestion was to really look at the acoustics of town and seeing how things travel. So Chris's metal roof, stone floor, no sides, no baffling, no sound absorbing materials causes the noise to go all over the place. And Cindy's hearing it up on that hill because that's how it's traveling up there. So measuring in front or across the street on the bench at the bank is not really giving us the full picture. I think ultimately we could settle into that one reading, but I think in figuring out our topography and how things are amplified and move, doing at both places would be It's a huge, it's a huge project and it's a huge, all, it's all measurable. It's all quantitative. It's not an opinion. I mean, it's on a decibel. So it doesn't really matter what type of music, it's church music, country music, rock and roll, it's all measurable. And we just have to use the tools that capture it correctly so we can get some peace and quiet. I mean, it's really disturbing. And no one's even calling in anymore because it's just, it's the aggression, the disrespect, the lack of positive results. It's all been really tiresome. And yeah, I mean, we've had people at them, they just don't even show up anymore. It's not because it's gotten better. Nothing's changed. It's actually gotten worse. So those two solutions, the 2-point margin of error does nothing for us when we're talking 84 decibels in an A weighted, we're 70, 71 on the cusp is not on the cusp because it's really 77 with 3 times more pressure, not just volume. So, I mean, maybe we all need to take a class on how it works.
Also, just, the outdoor entertainment licenses, I was just on Cornet Road sitting in traffic. Like sitting in front of Macaroons the other day, and there's a full band out there now too, with drums and singing, and I mean, what is our intent on these licenses? I think 20 years ago when they came out, it was, Walter McDonough at the Kittens and, the guy in the Porch International, and then it's just going exponentially into this, what do you guys want for your outdoor entertainment license? Oh, that's not it now. Oh, I'm sorry, Molly. I'm sorry. No, but I thought you could. Okay. Excuse me.
Do we have consensus on these items? If we don't, we'll keep working.
I would like to, I'm not saying it has to be the sole at the property line, but I
Right.
think the property line being, being a measurement, I think is it may not solve it, but I think by being at the property line, I think it will have some benefit. And it doesn't have to be the sole, but if it's at the property line, you can go farther back and if it's over, it doesn't matter, but it narrows it up some. I think it helps it. I don't think it hurts it. I don't think it necessarily solves it. Well, put it this way, if it's too high at the property line, and remember, property line encompasses the whole thing. And if there's a call at your house, that doesn't mean if it's higher there, that doesn't mean it's not enforceable.
Right.
Just gives you the tool to be able to use that as a.
Why not at the source though, and just skip all the issues with noise and hills and valleys and wind and rain and fog? I mean, why not at the source?
Isn't that what we're talking
That's
about?
kind of what I'm thinking the property line is bringing.
Well, you're talking about my property line.
No, I'm talking about
No.
the property line of.
The source.
Of the source.
Like,
Excuse me, because in our
Yes.
ordinance, it is right
No,
now. as a
That's what
property-
we're talking
Yeah.
about changing.
Okay.
yeah, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is change it to the property line of the person that has.
Yes, thank
the
you.
permit.
I
So,
agree 100%.
So, I mean, why don't we give this to Nick to have him put together, but rather than have it come back to set a public hearing, just have it come back.
Right.
So we can take
Yeah.
a look at it
That's great.
and then go from there.
I was wondering if you had any interest or any thought about a sound engineer coming in also.
Nancy was just mentioning that, and I think, perhaps we should look at that. I know we don't
Yeah.
have,
I don't think we're gonna solve it, we're obviously not gonna solve it by September, so we're gonna have a lot of time. Yeah, at some point, I'd like to have us discuss getting a sound engineer in here and talk about the various options that might be out there that we're not even sure of, and I read everything that you give to us, but to be honest, half of it I don't understand.
It's
I need,
it's a lot.
and
Yeah.
when Paul went to the course and came back, a lot made a lot more sense than it
Mhm.
ever had before.
Mhm.
you know, so I want to take a step beyond that over the, you know. over
No, I
the next
appreciate
couple
that.
months.
That's good.
Okay.
So can we just by consensus send this to Nick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I understand. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't see.
He's there. He's with us.
Hi, Nancy.
Keith, can I make a
Please.
ask the council whether you want to continue after Keith's absence and or then Nancy's absence? Or do we want to tackle number 3 in the time we have left and hold number 2 for a different evening?
Well, we've went.
Number 2.
Won't think a few weeks ago. The tense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll wait for Keith to go.
I thought you might have a 5:30 departure. So I don't know that we're going to cover tents and
I think
containers.
that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Yes.
All right. So yes. So the third item then is the tax classification, which based on the legislation that we passed in the spring, we're ready to pick back up again. The timetable on this would be to have something enacted by late winter if we were to make any changes, or otherwise the exemption in the current statutes sunset. So our choices are to let it, yeah, current ordinance, yes. Let it expire, replace it with something else, extend it. But what we asked the legislature for was flexibility to add 2 components. And it was to accommodate year-round rentals. So being able to give a property that rented to somebody who was a year-round resident some sort of recognition for that. It would no longer be in the form of a homestead exemption, but in a differential tax rate. And then the second component that we wanted to capture was for mixed-use properties where the residential portion was also used by a year-round resident, so that they could capture, again, some amount of benefit similar to a homestead exemption for qualifying on the residential portion. So I'd like to work with the Board of Assessors on those 2 components to draft language for the council to look at, if that's a strategy that makes sense.
That would be helpful. I'm curious on section 2, if you will, or section 1 regarding the rental. Do we have the flexibility if, whatever, Susan and I build a 513 on our property and we rent it year round? Of course, we're eligible for the homestead, but someone who was not otherwise eligible for the homestead builds a 513, which is happening in real time on the island, and rents it year round. Will that part of the new statute enable us to recognize that or not?
That's what the goal is.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be clear about that, because I think that's something we ought to talk about as a possibility for adding to the list of reasons that it might be worthwhile to do a 513.
Yeah, let me break that down into
Yep.
2 more categories, just so that everyone's talking about the same things. Let's do the easier one first, where you have rented your home, your primary home, to someone who lives in the primary home year round and is a resident. That doesn't qualify for a homestead exemption, but we were trying to set up a framework where that would qualify.
Right.
At that point in time, 513s were still 513s
Right.
and would not have
Yep.
fit into that category.
Yes.
Now 513s are ADUs, and
Yes.
the language around all of those are slightly different. And so even from 2 years ago, we can likely accommodate those in a way that we were not able to
Right.
before. They were a third category.
Yep.
Some of the questions on the table are, how do you fairly extend a benefit to someone who is renting less than the full property year round? Do you really extend the full benefit of the exemption, or are you then marking out square footage? Some communities do a modified rate, so if your homestead is 20%, they would set a tax rate equivalent equal to 10%. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'd like to work out with the Board of Assessors. Less in terms of policy, because you'll drop in the numbers in terms of policy implementation, but from an administrative standpoint, what can we do in a straightforward way based on our assessing records?
And based upon the staffing resources. that we
Yes,
have.
so that whatever we
Yeah,
implement is
absolutely.
actually
I should say, I have
achievable.
no particularly great idea how to do that. I just wondered whether that was an error.
Yeah.
So if we did this, you had said one of them wouldn't necessarily be the homestead 20%, it might be some other formula.
Right, so under Rhode Island general law, a differential owner occupied and non-owner occupied tax rate is in lieu of a homestead exemption. You cannot have both. So you can have a owner occupied, non-owner occupied that is exactly equal to, say, our current 20% homestead exemption. And we could keep our criteria exactly the same, meaning not expand it to any of these others. And it would just have a different structure. But you cannot keep the homestead exemption and do a owner occupied, non-owner occupied tax rate.
Right.
It's one or the other.
My concern would be, we're not giving anything, we're rearranging a piece of pie.
Correct.
And I think that if we make, let's call it the net a little bit wider so we can accommodate some of these, I think we have to take a hard look of saying, okay, maybe what was 20% might be 18%. Because I think the people that aren't receiving this, I think the burden as it is, I think it's 2-point-something%.
It was 2.7 when we first
2.7
calculated.
that
Yeah.
they're carrying. I would hate to have that number go up any higher, coupled with the fact between the Taylor Swift tax and
Yeah, I was just about to say.
and some of those things. So
Yeah.
I think,
Have to have
100%.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm open-minded to that as long as we don't, as long as we look at the whole project together, so we're not increasing it for those.
One of the things that gets missed so frequently on property tax is that the size of the pie doesn't change.
Right.
It's just the pieces.
Exactly. So, when we're talking about the pros of doing something, we've got to look at the cons.
100%.
of doing.
Absolutely.
And that's where I said, let's work out on the internal side, some mechanics that are implementable. And then we can bring to you some scales and matrix about what the trade-offs are of each of those.
Yeah.
In our time frame again, Amy, that before our sunset was,
I think it's March
We have
28th.
open sunset after 2 years.
Okay.
Just to see how it worked.
so not under a crunch, but we need to get it moving.
Yes, I really would say late winter, February-ish.
Sure.
Would be our target for putting something else in place or deciding that we're actively going to let that expire.
Would you tell the weather gods that you consider February to be late winter?
Yes.
But to be clear, when you say expire though, to be clear, you say expire, that means everything would go away.
Everything goes away.
So, got it. So I think that's the idea is to either, I think the general sense would either continue that or revamp that. I don't think we.
Yeah, one or the other.
Right.
Do we have any way of
Yeah,
quantifying
right.
it right now? How many we think might qualify if we were to have some sort of tax incentive for year-round housing units? Do we have any idea?
We do. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but we've been through the exercise of trying to estimate
Okay.
and know where we can pull from.
But we'll have a general idea.
Yes,
when
you will
come back.
when I come
Okay, so-
back.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that comes in with the downside.
Right.
The numbers.
Yeah. Have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.